Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Ampliverse Book Club. This month, we read the thrilling novel Song of Spider-Man, the inside story of the most controversial musical in Broadway history by Glen Berger. Here is the lineup of today's book club. Juicy and entertaining Broadway Bildungsroman, Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Hi. And both nearly unbelievable and deeply believable RJ. Hi.
That's a good one.
Thank you. It's just us two squirrel friends today. Summer's busy, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But because we're such geeks and wanted to like know what literally happened in Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. We persevered and finished it. But I am curious. Let's start off the convo. You brought this book to us, and I want to know, how did you like reading the book? And also tell us a little bit of how you came to bring this book over to the book club.
You got it. So, Orlando has this huge fringe festival. I know
the largest in the country. About. It's like the biggest one in the US. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. And so one of the shows that I saw at Fringe this year in May was called Spider Queen. And it was essentially based on this memoir.
Okay.
And it was really fascinating. I was like, I almost didn't see it actually because the show was at like 10:30 p.m., which is way on a Wednesday.
That is always tough about Fringe Festival. Yeah. It's like sometimes you get a really bad spot and you're like, this is the only time I can see the show because it's against other shows that I want to see.
Exactly. Everything overlapped this year. It was so hard. But another friend of ours, Jeffrey, was going and he was like, you should come. I'll pick you up. You don't have to drive. I was like, okay, deal.
Wow. He drove all the way to pick you up.
Well, he kind of lives on the way anyway. Like I'm kind of on his way. So it's not too big a deal. Yeah. So, but I was just glad that I didn't, because we're not out where we were. We've moved.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, anyway, and it was really good. It was one of the best things I saw at Fringe. If not my favorite, it was definitely up there. And the story was just fascinating. And I was like, there are definitely, obviously it was short. I think it was, one of the hour-long ones.
Yeah.
This year they had several that were 75 minutes, but I'm pretty sure this one was just an hour. So I was like, there is a lot more to this story that I'm not getting. And at the end of the play, they actually like shout out this book and they held it up and everything.
Cool.
I was like, I got to look into this. I have to. I was enamored. I was fascinated. I could not get enough Spider-Man content for like 3 weeks.
What was the point of view of the show?
It was really also Glen's point of view. Okay. At the beginning, they did kind of this like artsy thing where it was almost like you were in the writer room, but it was really confusing. It didn't make a lot of sense. And I was like,
very fitting too.
Right. I was like, I don't really understand what's happening. And then it became clear, that's what we were doing, that we got Glen Berger. And then once I read the book, the play actually made more sense.
Okay.
Yeah, because I guess they assumed that if you're coming to see this play, you knew something about Spider-Man. Nothing. I knew that there had been injuries. I thought somebody had died.
I thought
due to the injuries. Yeah, so that was pretty much all that I knew. I didn't know anything about the storyline. I probably knew somewhere in the deep recesses of my mind that Julie Taymor was involved, but I had forgotten.
So anyway, what was your experience reading the book?
Oh, I loved it. I audiobooked it, as I tend to do. And it was just like every 10 or 15 minutes, I would be like, why didn't this tell you guys not to do this? Why wasn't this the thing?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I went on YouTube. I found every clip I could find from the damn show, like obsessed. I was like, I must know more. And I wish that there was some way for me to see Spider-Man 1.0.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exist. So, but I want to know like the whole Arachne thing, but it's just not. It's not a thing. So I'll never know.
I'm very appreciative that you brought this book over for us to read, because I don't think I would have, like, obviously I'm a musical theater person, but I don't think I would have gone out to look for it, like it, unless unless like someone showed me something or reminded me of it, that I'm like, oh, it's interesting. I think what really hooked me was the fact that Glenn, who co-wrote the script, wrote this book. So it is a first person narrative of what happened and what the journey was. And as I was reading it, I really enjoyed it. There were a lot of moments where I gasped, like audibly gasped. And I don't think I do that when I read. And this was one that I was like, and I can't wait to get to what those parts are, because there were a lot.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed that he was telling the story of Spider-Man. He was trying to do his best to like get every detail, but he makes it very clear that like this also like evokes how it was like when I was there, and like the feelings, the pressure. And I felt like that was my biggest the biggest thing that I really related to, was just feeling that like, pressure cooker.
Oh, definitely.
Feeling.
Lots of those moments. And the other thing that's really interesting is that, like, I wonder if you found this reading the physical book. With the audiobook, it really was quite funny. Ironic funny, but and it's read by the author, and he does like put, it's even more like this is his story.
There's definitely like, it's written down that like there's this kind of like funny irony about like what they were doing, and he kind of goes into it of like when he finally starts seeing the show and realizes that what they made was camp, and like what they made was like completely like
the opposite of anything he ever wanted.
It's like the classic definition of camp, of like they're trying to make this so serious and really mean something, but because nothing is going right, it just becomes like camp. Like a farce. That I was like, I almost wish that if that had, and obviously
they ran with that.
I know I'm not obviously fixing a multi-million-dollar musical. I don't want to be that producer, but I almost wish that someone was like, it's a comic book. Let's live it up. But I think there were so many things involved at that beginning stages that really kind of set them up for the pressure cooker that they were about to enter. And one of the main things that they talk about, what Glenn really explores in his writing and this experience, is the idea of hubris, of like excessive pride, to the point that it almost like, kind of consumes people. And I wanted to kind of like talk about that.
Yeah. Well, and the major irony, and part of the reason that I was so desperate to find the Arachne version of this show is that huge irony that is the story of Arachne.
I know.
The story of Arachne is about hubris, and for them to be so blind until it was
was literally in front of them.
Even after it was literally in front of them, even after that, it was like, oh God.
Yeah, there's like a really awesome moment where Glenn was describing kind of like the fury of Julie Taymor as like the previews were happening and like being yelled at and like all these things. And he was like, I'm literally Peter Parker. She is literally Arachne. What have we gotten into?
Yeah. Art imitates life.
Yeah. So let's talk about hubris, because there are a lot of big egos. Not even ego in the negative word. It's just like big personalities, big names that are, and like big reputations attached to these names. We'll start off.
And then there's Glen Berger.
And then there's Glenn. I know.
And he feels that so hard the whole time. And every time he's like, my mortgage.
Yes.
Or I had to pay for this meal.
Absolutely. That was like my favorite.
That
was like, honestly, one of my favorite things about the book was that there was obviously, he is a real person. And although like he definitely like defends himself sometimes of like, I literally have Emmys. So like I know that I am not,
I'm not garbage.
Yes. Right. I know that I belong here, but because I am here, it's so hard to keep note of that. Yeah, and I think like definitely the mortgage and the like water bill was like one of the biggest things that I was like, oh, like for the dog, the majority of these people that are involved in this is just their livelihood, trying to make ends meet. And he really explores like the hubris of the people that are kind of like at the forefront of this may not be
financially above.
Yes, this is just like this is just more like reputation rise. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do want to start with personalities. Yes, I want to start with Bono and the Edge, because I think I will say I really thought that they were going to come through as like something's going to be off, but they stayed pretty chivalrous the entire book, that I was like, wow.
Yeah. And the way that they were portrayed in the play was, I was like, I don't know anything about Bono or Edge. Edge had like 2 words and was basically standing there with sunglasses the whole time. And was like, and then Bono was bananas.
Oh yeah.
Bananas. He was just, and I mean, I guess there is an allusion to that in, or I guess that is an allusion to in the memoir, when he talks about how Bono just, what did they call it? Where like, he just starts saying random crap.
Like it's not Bonoism, it's Bongolese,
Bongolese.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where it's just like his own language. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, and I mean, I get that. Like, I know that everybody that writes music has a totally different way of doing it. And so it makes sense. The way that he does it is it's the music first and the words come later.
Yeah.
For a musical, that's an interesting choice. When you have to write a story. But okay.
Yeah. I think what really kind of like what I loved about writing about Bono and the Edge was that there were so many moments of like Bono was running late to certain meetings and he was like, this is just something I had to take care of. And then Glenn realizing like, yeah, he had to talk to President Obama, or like he had to like, like he had to like free refugees, like actual like humanitarian work. And it was kind of like this beautiful, like going back to always, because Glenn would always bring back the, like, we're just trying to put on a play, like to kind of like, and I wonder, like, did that kind of like feeling also convey in like listening to him like talk about it?
Yes, it was a lot like, so the Fringe show was in one of the black boxes. So it was kind of an intimate setting. And this was very like that too. It was very much like listening to this, and it is an intimate story, man. And to just the way that he kind of at first was like, I cannot even speak to these people. Right. Like he like, and then all of a sudden, and then he's like, okay, now we're buddies.
Yeah.
But it was also interesting towards the end, the relationship that he had with Bono and Edge, when they were just kind of trying to figure out how to, they all knew that something needed to change, and they all knew that Julie wasn't going to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to figure out how to do that. And what I would be interested to know, because I feel like Glenn really did have a huge, loyalty to Julie.
Yes.
But a lot of people, including Julie, appeared to definitely not feel like that by the end.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to know how much loyalty Bono and Edge had to Julie as well. You know what I mean? It was also interesting. This was during Across the Universe too. Like,
oh yes. Have you seen? I have not seen Across the Universe.
Oh my God. I was one of those people, you know how she was like, people love this. They're seeing it in the theater all the time. I saw the movie in the theater like 5 times. I was a freshman in college. It was my aesthetic.
You're like, this is speaking to me.
It was. And then as soon as it came out on DVD, we would go down to like the conference room in our freshman dorm. And one of our friends figured out how to plug up his computer to the smart board, because back then that was not something everybody could do. Yep. And we were playing it on the big screen. We would just sleep down there and
oh my God.
Watching Across the Universe till 4 a.m. over and over again. It was ridiculous. So yeah, I love Across the Universe.
So you would have held out. You would have been there at 1.0.
I would have. That's why I want to see it. I'm like, and here's the other thing. I feel like the ideas that they had in the beginning were amazing.
Yeah.
And then they
Absolutely.
slowly came to realize that the technology was not where they were yet.
Yep.
And then they had to make one compromise, and then another compromise, and then another compromise, and then another compromise, and then their multi-million-dollar web didn't work.
Yeah.
You know, like anyway. So
yeah, I think it now is a great time to talk about Julie Taymor. And what I really appreciated from the book, because I was really scared that it was going to be like, let's pin it on the woman, you know, let's pin it on the creative genius. Because yes, like it's such a mixed bag, because going into it, you know what you're going to get. This is the woman who like thinks like this is how her creativity works. And you get her to get Spider-Man 1.0. And it was, I think what was really frustrating was how inflexible that was.
Yes.
But like, it's hard because for her, the only proof points that she have of being so true to her vision worked. Lion King is still running on Broadway today.
Lion King, billions of dollars. Well, and that's the thing I thought too was, you know, obviously we haven't even talked about Michael Cole.
Yeah.
No, was it Michael Cole? Who was the guy that at the very beginning did
Tony,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Tony. We haven't even talked about Tony.
Yes. So originally, Tony was the producer that was brought in to kind of like wrangle this all up. But unfortunately passed away. But Tony, like Glen kept
during
being
contract signings.
Yes, during signings.
Actively at the signings of the contract. Again, immediately. Theater people are a superstitious folk.
Yeah.
Why was
we can't even say the Scottish play when we are inside?
Fully and completely. Why was that not your sign? I can't.
But like Glen kept being like he was a charmer and he had like the perfect attitude, I think, to like be able to carry this through. And I think that was like the first domino to fall down.
Right.
And
for sure. And he had some experience
too. Yeah.
So I can't help but wonder, because this is my headcanon, and I don't, you know, obviously this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
But knowing Disney, not knowing them, you know, intimately, but knowing them pretty well.
Yeah.
I feel confident that there were a lot of moments that Julie Taymor for The Lion King was like, give me this. And Disney said, no.
Yeah.
And she had nothing you can't do anything. It's Disney, you know? So I do have a lot of, I'm like, I wonder if Disney had taken the helm. You know, like they had a relationship with her. I wonder if Tony hadn't died and if he had more of a like, no, these like, could he have reasoned with her?
Yeah.
Not to pin it on her, because again, I understand why she thought she was going to succeed. And I think that first story was probably spectacular.
Yeah.
So I just am, it's all just like it is a tragedy. It truly is.
It truly is. It's like a full Greek tragedy. And the full irony that they were going for the Greek story to tell
with the geek chorus and everything.
Yeah, it was amazing. I also think like, you know, in every kind of like creative director, there's always like a creative producer or someone to kind of Walt and Roy, you know, right? Walt had the ideas and Roy kind of kept him in line to make it actually possible. And I think Julie just didn't have that.
Not after Tony died.
And it ended up just being kind of like a free reign, which again, I don't blame Julie. I just blame the whole situation and how they could have avoided all of that.
Right.
At such an early place.
Yes, totally agree. And it's like, I know that in the book at some point, when they said that they were going to switch from the 1.0 to the 2.0, Glen said, please, can we record this? Please. And they didn't. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, like it hurts my soul that doesn't exist. Yeah. I'm sure that there were shortcomings because again, the technology was not there to achieve what they wanted, what they saw in their head could not yet be put on the stage. And, but at the same time, I feel confident that it's something that a lot of people could have looked past. Now, clearly there were some problems because of the reactions, you know? So
I think like the big thing about the technology and like all of those, you know, the spectacle was that they kept utilizing people that knew how to do it for movies, knew how to do it. No one ended up it was like Julie was really the only one that like has worked on theater before. Like it was basically like Julie, the stage managers, obviously, and like costume and set and the choreographer. But like the most important part,
the first choreographer.
Yes, the first choreographer. Yes. Which is so funny because Chase Brock actually, I think, follows me on Twitter.
That's awesome.
I think does it because I once tweeted him because I think he was Yep, we follow each other because he was the I don't know how he feels about
Spider-Man. He probably hasn't read the book yet.
That's true. But he Chase was the choreographer for that show Encore on Disney Plus. Where they would like schools would like they would reunite old cast members or whatever in a high school production. He was the choreographer. Anyway,
that's cool.
It just felt like they were relying so much on the technology and the ability to fly. But even like Glenn was like that thing where he broke his wrists, like the person that set that up was only used to like being able to do it for a shot and then like, you know, them landing safely. But here on theater, you have to complete the whole
thing. Right. Well, and I questioned if I wanted to watch the video of Chris Tierney, but I did. Did you go find it?
No, I know it's there. I don't want to watch it.
Fair. But here's the thing. You can't really see anything. It's not very close. But the only thing that you can tell is that, so apparently, supposedly what he was supposed to do in that scene was just like dive.
Yeah.
But as soon as he leapt, he felt that there was no pull.
There was nothing. Yeah.
So he does like a somersault. So that he landed on his back and not his head. So that's all that you really can tell is that he did this somersault because it goes black there anyway. Oh. So and then he fell into the orchestra pit, which obviously is not visible also. So it was tough because you do see that tether just fly behind him. But there's no physical, you don't see him hit because I could not have handled that.
Catherine, let's talk about the dangers of theater because
God bless
Catherine and I,
we've seen some things.
We have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to like theater. So we both were in Mary Poppins, very, very professional fly systems, shocked that people were in the air. It was insane. But with all of that came with a lot of practice, a lot of a lot of safety and security.
And don't forget Beauty and the Beast with the Beast transformation.
Yes, absolutely.
That's also took a lot of work.
Yes, a lot of work. And then Catherine and I were in a production of Sweeney Todd, which was very stripped down. I would say it was very good. We loved it. Very stripped down, honestly.
It was.
But because a piece of costume got caught on a set dressing, a cast member fell and broke their arm live on stage. Yes, in a lot of places, and we had to like stop the show halfway through, like at that moment.
Yeah, it was.
Theater is a contact sport.
And absolutely is.
Don't let anyone, kids, if your parents are like, whatever, blah, 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 theater, you'd be like, no, people get hurt. This is serious business. It is physical. It is exhausting. Like there is a lot going into it. And I think like reading through all of the tech injuries, like physically made me ill.
Oh my God. Well, and here's the thing though. I thought that Glenn had an excellent point in the book where he said everybody has injuries.
Yes.
Which is so true.
Yeah.
But they had this one dude that was fixated on them from the beginning.
Yes.
And so that's the other thing is it's like, obviously the Chris Tierney accident was huge, obviously. And that was due to negligence from a stagehand, which is also like, oh no.
Yeah.
Now the fact that Chris Tierney not only was like, no, it's cool, I don't blame him,
part of the job, you know.
Yeah. but then came back to the show. Now that blows my mind. Good for him. I'm glad he was in such a, I'm glad that that's how that went for him.
Those are like true adrenaline junkies that I could never relate to. I will play it safe.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep. Y'all can fly up there. That's fine. I'll stay.
I will gladly do the itsy bitsy spider in the corner as long as I don't get near any of the aerials.
Yep. Nope. We're not here for that. Nope.
Oh my God. I actually, at rehearsal once for Into the Woods, there were nails sticking out of Milky White. And when I grabbed it,
oh no.
Fully bled on my hand. Oh, so no. Theater is dangerous. Okay.
Theater is dangerous. So I think he brought up the Idina Menzel like a few nights from closing. Like, so there are injuries. And there are serious injuries. Yeah. But there's really broadcast out there for everyone to see.
I think the biggest one the Chris one is bad, but when I was actively reading the Natalie Mendoza concussion, I was like, that's bad. Yeah. That is very bad, because the fact that she kept going, and then it wasn't until the next day that was like, oh, by the way, I think I concussed myself hitting a piece of pipe. That I'm like, if she died in her sleep, that would be done. Yeah. Done. The show would be done.
Done.
And remember when I got a concussion at Sweeney Todd?
Oh my God. And that wasn't even, oh my God. We should have known. We should have known.
Like, oh my God, you're right.
How can we sit here and look at this and go, they should have known when we have partaken?
Listeners, during rehearsal, I emphatically and excitedly leapt out and hit my head on a piece of plywood. And I literally was my eyes were swirling and I had to be on concussion watch for the rest of the night.
I can't.
We should have known that was wow. Glenn, we get it.
We get it. We didn't realize how much we got it till just
now. Oh my God. Yeah. But that was that was a scary one. And also just the pit in general. The pit just absolutely terrifies me. When we did back to Into the Woods, it wasn't our production, but 10 years before, our school had done it. And our baker's wife fell in the pit.
Oh no.
Just tripped and fell in the pit. And when he was describing the pit, I literally was like, you need put a lip on the goddamn pit. Even just a little lip to know.
Yep.
And put some spike tape on there so people know that the pit, come on.
Spike it, people.
It is the least you could do. There is a full drop right in front of you. The least you could do is
a little bit of spike tape. Yeah. I mean, I also watched, now there aren't, to my knowledge, there are no recordings of the one you were talking about, the pull where if it wasn't at just the right degree and it wasn't, and he broke both of his wrists, and then someone else I think hit his head. There were multiple injuries with that same stunt. So I don't think there are recordings of those, but I was I don't know if I can handle that. I was not looking to look for that, but I wanted to see the stunt. What were they trying to achieve? Envisioning it. Yes. Yeah. And so I believe I found it. It's this moment where he jumped back, and it was the ramp was up like this, right? So that was the thing, was if the ramp was off just the wrong way, when his hands, because he landed, you know how Spider-Man does with his hands like this, if the ramp was not at the right degree with the power of the fly systems that they were using, then that was it.
Done.
And the other thing that I'm just was the whole thing about the arena tour situation. I didn't even consider the fact until I was listening to this, that the fly systems in theaters are typically quite simple. We talk about Mary Poppins. Yes, it's beautiful and it's amazing, but we're lifting her into the air.
Yes, literally she goes up and
right? Yes. So this is not that. And I saw a clip of bouncing off the walls, and he has this whole gyrosphere on because he's doing flips and stuff. And they were like, the costumer said there's no way to hide it. Of course there's no way to hide it. I looked at it. It looked like headgear from the 80s. Like it was just immense. And I'm just like, why? All of these things should have been like, okay, like for example, with the Lion King, those costumes are so simplistic, but it's beautiful. Like there could have been a way to do that for this situation, you know, where he's not really flying, you know, I don't know. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is the thing that I felt like was missed. Was obviously you want to take a gamble. They had so much writing on them of like, this will be the biggest spectacle Broadway's ever seen. Right. And I totally understand that. But I think like they had so many red flags along the way that it was kind of reckless to not notice them along the way. Cause there were a lot. Right. I think what I really felt for was that he did it. Obviously, like he couldn't, it's not journalism. So he wasn't like getting the point of view of every single person, but it was nice to get bits and pieces of like other people that were in there. So like the stage manager, when I love the like hold, like I love all of those. It just took me right back. And I'm like, you know, when you hear hold from the God mic that either something's going on.
Takes me right back to Mary Poppins and Beauty and the Beast in particular. That is the God mic I remember.
That is, oh my God. Yeah. The God mic was never as utilized as much as Beauty and the Beast and Mary Poppins. Right. And I think like it really puts a perspective for me of like, usually when you're in a show in tech, it's a lot of bring your snacks. You're going to be sitting around. But it is the only opportunity where all of the spectacle comes together. Yeah. And
and when you've got millions and millions and millions and additional millions riding on it, I can only imagine the pressure. Yeah. Because we felt that pressure and we have nothing right now.
There was nothing.
Not a damn thing.
We were doing theater for literally like fun. No one was getting a single dollar from
Not
these
a dollar.
shows, but it was I did like, you know, hearing about the stage managers. I liked hearing about the choreography, and I especially loved kind of like the more singular accounts from the different performers, especially like with the whole Natalie Mendoza situation, and then America having to fill in, and like Glenn really like described like the pressures that she felt of like she knows that she's not who Julie wants to play Arachne right now, but it's like what else can you do? And it's just I don't know.
And similarly the TV Carpio and how she all of a sudden went from one of the main characters to being in one scene, you know, or two scenes. She got two, I think. But it's like I can't imagine that level of disappointment too. Not to mention the constant relearning of choreo, of aerial, of lines. Like, man, I can't imagine. But yeah, honestly, having watched 2.0 from somebody's purse.
I want to talk about 2.0. I want to talk about that. Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. It was camp. It was pure camp. Yeah. But it wasn't as bad as honestly I was expecting. Like I didn't even think I would make it through the whole thing. Yeah. And my partner and I both, we sat there and watched the whole thing like together. And the only time we would do this when they would put their phone in their purse. Like, because
I think the only part, like the thing was like Glenn was also having that discovery too. Because obviously, and that's why I think the whole his method of writing this as storytelling really worked, because during 2.0 happening, it felt like so terrible. Like it was a dirge, you know, that when it finally premiered, it was like the first time seeing like, oh, okay, like it wasn't as bad. Now it's just because ultimately it is now just another show on Broadway. Right. So that way it's like, it is perfectly palatable. It is like just fully sanitized. And I almost like, I'm curious what you thought about like that decision of turning it to 2.0 and, you know, the like work with Phil and Roberto. And one line that really stood out to me was Phil being like, you know, or I don't even know if it was Phil, but there was something of like, being artistic isn't for Broadway, it's for off Broadway. That's what off Broadway is for, to be able to do this. And I immediately was like with Glen at that moment.
Right. That's gross.
That's terrible. That's horrible.
Gross. That's gross. And the thing is that it's crazy to think that this wasn't that long ago. I mean, I guess it was, you know, it was like 2009.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think it closed. Didn't he say 2013 was when
it closed in 2013? Yeah, it ran for 3 years.
Yeah.
But so it's, you know, 10 years ago, essentially. And I think that sentiment is nowhere near on Broadway anymore. You know what I mean? I think there is a great deal of artistic freedom being taken on Broadway right now with Six, with Hadestown, like with Hamilton, you know? So these big powerhouses of art and beauty and pushing the limits really destroyed that notion. And I think that was important because I felt exactly the same way. I was like, ew.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, as much as it was hard for them to go through this experience with Julie and the vision of 1.0, we have to make room for that. You know, like there has to be room for that also on Broadway.
Right.
We can't just kind of gatekeep it so everything is a jagged little pill, you know?
Right. Yeah, no. And I feel like, I hope that if there hadn't been so many injuries, that they could have worked it out. Like, I think that really was, and I don't think that Glen's emphasis was on that. I think that Glen's emphasis was on the money.
Yep.
And with this show passing through so many financial hands, I'm sure that was a big part too.
Yeah.
But the money combined with the bad press, I think were enough for them to oust Julie, essentially. Based on what Glen is saying. I don't want to get sued.
I know, please.
But don't I know. I don't have any money.
The lawsuits at the end almost really felt more just like, and Glen said it, like, as an artist, your biggest tool is communication, and revenge is a form of communication. And this was her way of kind of doing that, which I don't blame her, but I also, it's like hitting where it hurts the most, because as Glen has like done so well, really capturing that, like, I am not in a place where everyone else is when it comes to money. Like,
well, and I hate that. I really, because of the relationship that they started to have, I really hate that she felt that he needed to be a part of that lawsuit. And I can understand to some extent why she felt that way, but I would have, it sounded to me that he was really still in communication with her. Any questions that she asked him, he was answering. And so it's like, if anything, is that not helping your lawsuits? Like, why?
And he still took, I mean, he took this job to be able to work with her. Like, this is, and if I was in Glen's shoes, I would have done the same thing.
I can't blame him.
So.
No. I mean, and at the beginning, it is, you know, obviously a cruel irony that at the beginning he made that joke to her, like, you know, how good of an idea is it really to make a Spider-Man musical? And she's like she took offense, and he immediately, you know, he got his mind on track.
Exactly. I didn't realize Spider-Man was back here this entire time.
So I mean, you mentioned briefly Roberto, and those conversations really, I was like, I didn't like that at all.
That's what I kind of really liked learning about during 2.0, was just the immediate, like, the only way to solve it is completely 180. And it was just like, these people went through so much. The least you can do is kind of like meet halfway. And that's kind of like the gross part of making commercial theater that I don't like.
Who was it? I think it was Phil. Have you signed your contract yet? Like, I was like, that is the most toxic bullshit I have ever heard in my life. Like, and I hate that. I don't think that they needed to gut the show to fix it.
I almost liked, I did like Plan X of like simplifying.
Yes.
But I think what was nice was that like even the reviews were like most of Julie's vision is still here.
That's
if
true.
not just more sanitized.
Good. That's true. That's true. That is, I was really curious about what kind of sex scene they were trying to have with Arachne and Peter Parker. I couldn't find that on the internet, but you know, so if anybody has a recording
at this point, just make 1.0 in like a super stripped down black box off Broadway. Like if truly at the heart of it, you want the story to be told, tell it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Catherine, I'm so happy that you brought this book to the book club. So thank you very much.
I enjoyed it.
Well, keeping with the theme of superheroes for our next book club reading, next month we will be reading We Were Dreamers, an Immigrant Superhero Origin Story by Simu Liu. So toss, I went to his book tour when he came to Chicago. So I actually got to see him talk about, you know, his experience writing this book. So I wanted to bring it to the book club so we can all talk about it. So here's a little bit of what this book is. The star of Marvel's first Asian superhero film, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, tells his own origin story of being a Chinese immigrant, his battles with cultural stereotypes and his own identity, becoming a TV star and landing the role of a lifetime. In this honest, inspiring, and relatable memoir, newly minted superhero Simu Liu chronicles his family's journey from China to the bright lights of Hollywood with razor-sharp wit and humor. We Were Dreamers is more than a celebrity memoir. It's a story about growing up between cultures, finding your family, and becoming the master of your own extraordinary circumstance. So that book, you can grab a copy of it now and all of the books that we've read in the Ampliverse bookshop. So if you purchase a book there, it not only helps the Ampliverse, but also a local bookstore in your area. So you can go check that out, bookshop.org/shop/the Ampliverse. The URL is right down there. Thank you so much for watching or listening along to the Ampliverse Book Club. You can find and follow us on social media at the Ampliverse on Twitter and Instagram. And finally, if you love the show and others we do here, feel obliged to tip $1 or $2. You can do that on our Ko-fi, linked on this episode, which keeps the light on in our universe. Catherine, thank you again for joining Book Club. And hopefully I'll see you next time.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see what schedules look like.
We'll see what schedules look like. Summer is going crazy, but it's always fun to
Speaking of theater.
Up. Yeah. Oh, yes. She's back at it. She's booked.
Yeah. She's booked and blessed.
Thank you, everyone, for joining our book club, and we'll see you next month. Until then, read on. Goodbye.
Bye.
Discovering voices, building worlds.